The river Arno flows beneath the stone arches of Florence with a slow, indifferent fluidity. From the high window of this private restoration attic, I watch the water mirror the ancient brick of the city. I look back at the events of that night, not with the raw sting of emotional injury, but with the cold, clinical detachment of a forensic scientist reading a decade-old autopsy report. In the world of art restoration, a forged provenance is an absolute insult to time itself. In matters of blood, it is precisely the same. When my son, Christian, publicly declared that I was dead simply to secure a multi-million-euro investment check from a family of oligarchs, I did not experience anger. Anger is an erratic, unstable variable that clouds critical analysis. Instead, I quietly reviewed the master legal deeds of the historic palazzo that currently houses his greed. Art can forgive poverty, but the science of authentication never tolerates an impostor. The grand salon of the palazzo was maintained at an improper 24 degrees Celsius, too warm, too volatile for historical pigments. But the crowd did not care about preservation. They cared about the illusion. Christian stood beneath the gilded Gothic arches, a glass of crystal champagne resting perfectly in his manicured hand. Beside him stood Vivienne, and her father, the billionaire collector, to elevate his own myth as a tragic, self-made prodigy. Christian projected a massive photograph of me onto the 60-foot digital screen. My father was a peasant painter, Christian announced to the press. His voice was smooth, expensive, completely fabricated. He spent his final years starving in a dark basement, consuming his own lungs for his craft. He died in isolation. I founded this gallery to fulfill the dying wish of a ghost. The elites of Florence raised their glasses, a collective murmur of superficial sympathy. Then, I walked through the double oak doors. I wore my working loden coat, simple, stained with the faint gray dust of calcium carbonate. Christian's face underwent an immediate, pathological spasm of panic. He broke away from the investors. He intercepted me in the shadow of a marble pillar before the cameras could pivot. He did not greet me. He reached onto a nearby display pedestal, grabbed a silk cleaning rag saturated with pungent linseed oil, and threw it directly at my chest. The wet cloth left a heavy amber stain on my fabric. "What are you doing here?" he hissed, his breath smelling of vintage wine and fear. "Are you trying to destroy the wedding of the century? If you want to smell the oil so badly, clean the dust off that marble pedestal and get the hell out through the garbage exit. My gallery does not accommodate vagrants." He turned to the private security detail. "Remove this man from the premises immediately. We must preserve the aristocratic atmosphere." The guards stepped forward. I did not move. I did not alter my posture by a single millimeter. I looked down at the silk rag resting at my feet. Slowly, deliberately, I picked it up. I used it to wipe a stray smudge of raw pigment from the back of my left hand. I did not argue. I did not scream out the truth to the ballroom. To scream is to acknowledge that their opinion holds value. It holds none. I glanced up at the digital hygrometer on the wall. 42% humidity, falling fast under the heat of the gala lamps. I looked at my son's eyes, registering the shallow, rapid respiration of an amateur criminal. Then, I turned around. I walked down the stone corridor alone. He believes he has buried an old man beneath a profitable lie. He believes his security can lock out the truth. He is entirely wrong. He has just introduced a raw, unstable compound to an extreme thermal environment. The chemical countdown has officially begun. The compression is total. I do not issue corrections. Correction is a plea for validation. And a master has no need for validation from the infected. Instead, I retreat into the absolute stillness of my private library. The room smells of aged vellum, beeswax, and old wood. On the desk lies the leather-bound register, containing every asset identification code of the palazzo, every stone, every timber, every square meter of his platform. I tap the terminal screen beside it. An automated matrix initiates, a digital countdown clock, ticking down to the exact second of molecular decay. The protective varnish Christian stole from my desk was unstabilized. It was an incomplete formula. Under the intense, continuous thermal pressure of 80-100-watt halogen gala lamps, the synthetic polymer will contract. It is not a matter of prediction. It is basic, linear chemistry. I look down at my hands in the dim light. 38 years of exclusive, silent, unforgiving labor. The permanent white scars across my knuckles, left by concentrated nitric acid and volatile solvents. The dull ache in my joints from winters spent in unheated vaults. This skin has bled to preserve the works of masters. My silence is not an absence of power. It is a disciplined, calculated application of force. While my son celebrated his artificial status on social registries, I documented his ledger, line by line, transaction by transaction. 24 canvases of unproven origin, smuggled into his collection to artificially inflate his corporate equity. Every fraudulent provenance, a terminal cell added to his system. Across the river, the gala is beginning to rot. Under the unyielding glare of the exhibition lights, the masterpiece is dying. The varnish begins to necrose. It dries too fast. It shrinks. And the artificial cracklier begins to peel away like dead skin, exposing the truth beneath the surface. Not the hand of a 16th century genius, but crude, industrial graphite sketches. The whispers among the international appraisers start as a low hum. Then, they mutate into open panic. The word forgery travels through the high society of Florence like a malignant cancer. My phone vibrates on the volcanic stone table. A rapid, frenzied, continuous pulse. Christian. Dad. The varnish is lifting. The painting is cracking on the display. The appraisers are walking out. Vivian's father is threatening to revoke the entire funding contract. Where is the chemical stabilizer? Please, bring the solvent. Save me. I skim the frantic lines. I do not reply. I do not instruct my attorneys. I flip the screen face down on the cold stone surface. I lift my glass of vintage Brunello, swirling the deep crimson liquid with perfect, unhurried precision. They spent my tolerance as if it were an infinite credit line. When the synthetic coat begins to flake, they reach out to the restorer they claimed was dead. But my studio does not operate as an emergency bailout fund for the unfilial. The spring is wound to the absolute breaking point. The incubation phase is closed. 50 million euros, then 40, 20, 0. The digital valuation board flashes like a dying monitor. The billionaire investors are tearing up their contracts in front of the cameras. The room is a chaotic, frenzied echo chamber of ruin. Criminal fraud indictments are filed within 90 seconds. Christian stands at the podium, his hands shaking so violently he drops his crystal glass. The illusion has shattered. The grand mahogany entrance doors swing open. No shouting, no dramatic scene. I walk through the center aisle. Beside me, the chief audit team from the Ministry of Culture, and my personal legal counsel. My attorney steps to the main podium, his voice an unyielding, razor-sharp instrument of law. This assembly will note 2 immediate structural updates, he states. First, the historic Palazzo premises and the operating license of this gallery are the exclusive, private property of the Nicholas Heritage Fund. The lease is terminated instantly due to a catastrophic breach of ethical conduct. I step to the master digital terminal. In my hand, the heavy brass seal of the International Art Authentication Association. I press it down. The global network feed turns a violent, bloody, crimson, invalid, forgery. With a single stroke, the entire 50 million euro collection transforms into worthless canvas. Industrial waste. Christian is on his knees. His fingers are clawing at the marble floor. His face hollow, depleted. A vacuum. Vivienne is frantically throwing her diamond necklaces into a velvet bag, screaming at her father as the empire dissolves around her. I stand 3 feet above my son. I adjust the cuffs of my loden coat. My tone is a flat, horizontal line of absolute judgment. You wanted to build a gallery on my fake grave, Christian, I say. My voice fills every corner of the silent ballroom. I gave you eyes to appreciate art, but you use them only to count greedy numbers. Today's 50 million euro loss is the precise tuition fee for your very first lesson in reality. I lean in, the absolute authority crushing the room. A man who does not know how to respect the restorer never, ever has the right to own the masterpiece. The provenance audit has concluded. You are fired. The billionaire father-in-law turns his back, leaving his daughter behind without a glance. The marriage is dissolved, he tells his lawyers. The security guards, the exact same men who threw me toward the garbage exit, step forward. They grab Christian by his bespoke collar, dragging his trembling frame across the stone floor for illegal trespassing. I pick up my antique leather notebook from the central table. I walk down the grand aisle. On my left and on my right, the elite of the art world bow their heads in complete, silent submission. The necrosis has been excised. The system has been completely purified.